Good morning. Happy Thursday. Today I remembered to take a drink before I started talking to you. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum, here with some words of wisdom to start your day off well, give you something to think about during the day, hopefully talk to somebody about it, share some ideas and thoughts on something. And so we'll give it a minute here as everybody starts to arrive, our Practical Rebels group. There's Abigail. Good morning, dear. Glad you are here. Welcome. And as people start rolling in, just checking in with y'all. How are you doing on this fine Thursday? It is cold here. Good morning, Nancy. I think we have a frost warning, so I think it's like 34 right at the moment. Chilly. Hello, Beth. Welcome. Glad you're here. Joniel. Oh, you can see comments today. Fabulous. Well, Facebook has its way of doing things weird. Thank you for the sunrise. Appreciate it. Love it. So everybody's starting to roll in. And we have a chapter out of Tosha Silver, Outrageous Openness, that I changed the title because I wanted to make it a little more relevant to the content. So I'll tell you what page it's on for those of you who like to follow along in the book. Good morning, Beth. Welcome. Heater kicked on. Yes, absolutely so. We turned it on too. It was pretty brisk. So, yep, we're there. It's fall, which I'm happy about. I love autumn. I love winter when I don't have to shovel snow. So now that Dad may be in a different location for the winter, I'm hiring someone to do the snow. Yay! I'm so excited. So if any of you are in the Appleton area and you know a good snowplow company, I've got a warehouse and a house that are going to need plowing and shoveling. So, yeah, welcome. Glad you're all here. So, let's do a little tapping. I really want us to be open to this one. Yesterday, my beloved coffee group and I started working our way through a book called The Sophia Code. And it's about bringing the divine feminine back online. And page 5 of that book, wholly amazing. I think we went back to page 5 at least a half a dozen times because there was so much packed in that one page. And then when we were trying to figure out what we were going to cover for the next time, one said, well, there's only 6 pages in chapter 2. And I'm like, yeah, but look what happened with page 5. So just, yes, good information, interesting information, thought-provoking information, things that stretch our brains. Gotta love it. Nancy, your name has rolled multiple times, so I think there's good stuff here for you today. Good morning, Mel. Glad you are here. So, let us do some breathing and some tapping. I'm going to do a whole round of the tapping, and it's all about being open to this idea that we're going to talk about, that things aren't coincidence. They aren't just happening for the sake of happening. They're unfolding in a divine way. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's do some tapping on that. Side of the hand. And I'm going to give you words and you can repeat them, or if you have words of your own, go for it. All right? Even though I sometimes think things are just coincidence, I'm willing to look at it differently. Even though we all talk about coincidence, I trust in a divine unfolding. Even though I'm not really sure about all of this, I'm willing to be open to learn. Inside corner of the eyebrows, coincidence. Outside corner of the eyes, what is that really? Under the eyes, what if there is a divine plan? Under the nose, what if we chose to come here to learn certain things? Under the mouth, what if our obstacles are the very lessons we're meant to learn? Collarbone, obstacles as helpers. Under the arm, I trust the divine unfolding. around the crown of your head. Can't wait to see how this unfolds. Take a breath. Let it go. Now, just prefacing, here's your brain sitting in your head. You have hemispheres, right? Hemispheres do slightly different things. Band of fibers in between, called the corpus callosum, that's designed to be a bridge so that these two sides of the brain that do somewhat different things can communicate with each other. When we're under stress, the stress hormones that flow, cortisol, adrenaline, etc., tend to break that bridge up. So there's less communication. And we're not as effective as we could be. So, when you think about, they talk about the left brain as being more the logic and reason side of things, and the right brain as being more the creative, holistic side of things. Seems weird to say holistic when we're talking about a side. But again, there are children who are born with very little brain matter, and their brains learn to adapt. So, rules of thumb can kind of be loosey-goosey. But the reason I wanted to talk about the left and the right is in this story, she talks about this guy being very left-brained. So, Outrageous Openness, Letting the Divine Take the Lead by Tosha Silver. The chapter, if you've got the book, it's page 50. The chapter is actually called Whisper to a Scream. But I didn't think that said anything about what the story was about. So, might have been more catchy than Is It Coincidence, but oh well, we're going with it. So, and this is another one of those chapters that has 2 quotes at the beginning. And you know my theory that when there's 2 quotes at the beginning, there's great stuff in the chapter. So, the first quote is by Albert Schweitzer. The city of truth cannot be built on the swampy ground of skepticism. The city of truth cannot be built on the swampy ground of skepticism. If you look at anything that's been accomplished, it's pretty much been accomplished by people who had conviction. People who had an end goal in sight and just kept going. Regardless of what kinds of obstacles they hit, they just kept going. The only difference in my mind between the people who accomplish something and the people who don't is that stick-to-itiveness. Just keep going. And are some people behind greater difficulties than others? Absolutely so. Absolutely so. But I still believe that the universe aligns with those who have a mindset to accomplish something and helps us move forward. Second quote, Anonymous. The God that atheists don't believe in never existed anyway. So, here's her story. And actually, there's a story in the story. Gotta love that. One of my unlikeliest but closest friends is Don, an economics professor at a local university. He's as skeptical and left-brained as they come. He likes to introduce me as his wacky psychic pal with the degree from Yale. Like a 7-toed lizard, a 2-headed chihuahua, or some other freak of nature he happened to find in a corner of Golden Gate Park. Yep. Once we were at a Berkeley cafe when he started his latest round of teasing about my alleged close encounters with the divine. I grabbed his hand and looked in his eyes. Really, Don? Total truth. Has anything ever happened that made you wonder if you had the full picture? Anything ever rock your perfect little rational world? And he told me that in college, he had shared a dorm with his friend Joey. One night during a snowstorm, Joey left and hadn't returned by the time Don went to sleep. Nothing unusual. Suddenly, at 3 a.m., he awoke with a pounding heart, clearly having heard Joey scream his name. Loudly. Twice. But no one else was in the room. Half asleep, he yanked on his clothes and stumbled into his VW Bug. His subconscious took over as he slowly drove through a thick blanket of snow. He was drawn like a magnet 10 blocks away, where he found Joey's car wedged into a snowdrift. The guy was freezing, drunk, and confused. No one could ever explain what happened. I was dumbfounded as I listened, stirring honey in my oatmeal. Man, you gotta be kidding. This didn't change your life at all? No way. Don shook his head vigorously. I had to see it all as coincidence. If I hadn't, I would have begun to question everything. I'd been accepted to grad school. I was following all the rules and winning. No time to rock my world. No time to grow. No time to expand. No time to... Yeah, okay. Enough pontificating. You know, I mused, I'm not sure that story was a coincidence. You were in the realm of bona fide clairaudience and telepathy. Those are genuine gifts and abilities. Sounds like your higher self was making contact. Yeah, but I sure couldn't afford to stop for a chat. Next step, the loony bin, he laughed, twirling his pointer finger at his brain. Well, actually, I said, in a sane culture, this would all be seen as a gift. Children would learn to follow their inner guidance from the beginning. Nothing to fear and everything to gain. Whatever, sweetheart, said Don, smiling indulgently as he took a sip of green tea. Maybe next life. So there's someone who's very hard line about not believing in anything that's not logical, practical, reasonable, easily explained. Do you have people in your life like that? Do you have the people who don't buy into any of this, who believe everything, any of the things that we ascribe certain attributes to? It's coincidence, or it's just something that happened, or it didn't happen anyway, or your senses are deluding you, or whatever. Notice, she didn't back off of her position. She still firmly believes those were God incidences, right? Not coincidences. How able are you to hold your belief in there's more here than we can see, hear, smell, taste, touch, when you're around someone who's like Don, not a believer, not a, in fact, even less than a believer, actively opposed to going there? How well do you hang on to your own mystical, magical beliefs in the face of that kind of wall? That kind of obstacle. Maybe that's an opportunity. Maybe it's our opportunity to have discerned what it is that we truly believe and advance ourselves and the unfolding of this process, regardless of what other people, especially those closest to us, believe in that regard. So, my call to action is, I want you taking a look at what do you believe? You can use her story as an example. Did he really hear his friend scream from 10 blocks away, call his name from 10 blocks away? Was he literally using clairaudience, being the recipient of clairaudient information, but he won't choose to believe it? What about in your life? What have been those opportunities? One of the best depictions of it that I really like is in the movie The Princess Bride. Glimmer of hope. Yes, love that. That's beautiful, Deb. Thank you. Yes. They're actually intrigued, but they're scared, and so they're going to hit the resistance. They're going to say the yeah, but. Rather than fight with them about it, well, just think about it. Feel into it. Check with your intuitive self and see what you get. Ha ha ha. I don't have one of those. That's a great way to look at it. We're planting seeds. Again, we're just planting seeds, right? So I started a thought there and I lost it. I'm aware I lost it. It'll come back. But what about for you? How able are you to hold the mystical magical? That's why I so love my coffee group, and I so love all of you, and I so love my opportunities to be exposed to that edge of what we would call reality. Realities can be different. Reality can be very expansive, I believe. And what we are open to receiving can much more easily come our way. And how we were talking about this yesterday on the coffee group call, how we need it to be presented to us. Oh, thank you, Deb. Yes, Princess Bride movie thought. There's the scene where Inigo Montoya is looking for, who's he looking for? Anyway, he's in the torture chamber. And so he's standing there and he's trying to figure out where was he taken. And so he holds his sword out and he asks the universe for guidance. And his sword starts to move and it pokes into a knot in the tree hole and the door swings open and he has access. To me, that's a beautiful example of allowing the guidance, allowing something that's beyond our typical senses to take us where we need to go. I have a friend who wrote a book, and the gist of it was that after her world kind of imploded, she was so distraught that she didn't quite know what to do with herself. So she laced up her sneakers, went and stood on the curb, and waited for her feet to tell her which direction to walk. And she did that for like an entire year, allowing her feet to lead the way, and all the things that she learned in the process of doing that. So we can create our own opportunities to explore this kind of stuff. Taking a moment, just put your hand on your heart, do a little breathing, see if there's some guidance there. What do I need to pay attention to now? What would you like me to know now? What gifts do you have to offer me? Taking a few minutes, sitting at stoplights, that's a great place to do that. Okay, what's going on within? Then you'll get my car actually tells me when the person in front of me moves. So I could even close my eyes because I'm going to get the cue that, oh, they've moved. Must be a green light. But taking the time to tune in. Back in the day when people worked the land, I think it was much more accepted, some of this stuff. They may not have used the language, but they had a sense of knowing. I remember hearing farmers say that they kind of had the sense that there was a new sheep out in the field or a new calf in the barn or whatever. There was that rhythm of nature that people were more in tune with. We can redevelop that. We can redevelop that. Yes, friends see you as an oddity. Sprinkle that stardust, absolutely. And I think about Harry Potter. Luna Lovegood, what did they call her? Looney Lovegood. But she was connected. She was aware of what was beyond. And she just said her stuff in that very ethereal way she had. And there were those who looked at her like she was nuts, and there were those who recognized the gift. So, we have a choice. We have a choice. I choose to develop these gifts. I feel like they are mystical, magical, amazing. Sometimes the path of the mystic is pretty rocky. There's some obstacles. But it feels so right to me that that's the path I follow. It feels like this is what I'm being called to. This is the information I'm meant to take from whatever my experiences are. And what I'm finding is as I do that more, good morning, Trudy, glad you're here, welcome. I become more and more connected to the Earth Walk. The Earth Walk begins to make more sense to me when I have this much bigger picture than just the 3D human perspective of the unfolding. So, that's your challenge. Go forth today. Look for the mystical. Practice the magical. Enjoy the things that you know like you know like you know. There may not be, it didn't come to you in an envelope through the U.S. Postal Service, but you just know something, right? That's a valid way to receive information. Have an awesome Thursday. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.